Well, these three have heard this story many times. I was just in the kind of halfway back after Mass, halfway back in a pew after Mass, and Sister Bernard came up to me and she said, would you consider being a presenter at the RCIA? And this was in probably 1989, we figure. I was working full-time, had 3 children at home, but my main concern was, I said, you meet on Thursday nights? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I play bridge on Thursday night. And all she said was, you play bridge every Thursday night? And I said, no, just the 2nd and the 4th. She said, we'll schedule you the 1st or the 3rd. Thank you. And that's how I became a member of the RCIA. But once I participated, it was like I just was very energized by this, and I had been praying that I'd like to be a sponsor to help bring somebody into the church, and I thought, this is God's way of answering that prayer abundantly. So it's been a true blessing, and I do appreciate having received that call.
So I went to RCIA for enrichment in 1987 with a friend of mine, both young mothers, and it was something outside of home to do, and felt like we maybe needed to fire up our faith lives, and I enjoyed it very much. And 2 years later, I convinced my husband to go to RCIA with me, and we were just going for enrichment, but it wasn't long into that year, and Sister Bernard said, we need a discussion leader. I think you would be perfect. So 1989, I came in as a discussion leader, and then 2 years later, they needed a presenter, and Sister Bernard again asked me if I would be a presenter, and I felt completely incompetent to do that, but she reassured me that I could do that. And I have been involved in RCIA ever since, and just gradually evolved, and as different roles opened up and needs were seen.
And I came on board with RCIA shortly after Ellen at, once again, Sister Bernard's prompting. Steve and I had come for enrichment, and it was on marriage, and we were meeting in the basement at that time, so we came a little early, and she was frantically setting up the cookies, and I just said, Sister Bernard, Steve and I'll set those cookies up, and she said, you don't know how hard I've been praying for someone to take over the cookie ministry. Oh, okay. And so I began with the cookie ministry, and Steve and I were asked to do a talk on the marriage once we'd done the enrichment, so we did that with our marriage encounter group, and then I've continued to carry on the cookie ministry and marriage encounter or the marriage talk, including some marriage encounters.
Okay, definitely. Well, I didn't grow up with you guys.
We watched you.
They did watch me grow up. I was a sponsor in 2017, I think, and I was also teaching the pre-baptismal class for the parish at the time, and somebody else was giving the baptism talk, and I remember telling Natalie, who was director at the time, that if you ever need anybody to do that talk, I could do it as well. And I think that year, that same person moved away, and next thing I know, I was doing the baptism talk and continued to sponsor occasionally throughout there. And I knew Natalie was getting ready to retire, and I kind of ignored that call for a couple years, and here I am. So.
Well, one of the thoughts I had is that, and the team is more than the 4 of us. There's also people who facilitate discussion. The way it enriches is that we all share belief in the dogma of the church. How the team approach helps, I think, is where they see that there's this Catholic Church that has these beliefs, but we all live out those beliefs out in our own unique way. However we're gifted, however what type of prayer we find most enriching. We just our personalities and how even we do presentations. So I think they see that becoming Catholic doesn't mean it's a cookie cutter thing, that I've got to believe, I've got to do things this way. So,
and that was what I was thinking also, is the diversity that the team approach brings is one of our great strengths, because people coming into the church, just like us, everyone has their own individual perspective and approach, and what they can see is that, that's okay, And so that diversity, and I just think, if you had the same person presenting week after week after week, then you get Catholicism by Natalie Collins or whatever. And so with the team approach, they get to see just all those different perspectives.
I was going to say prayers is definitely it.
It's often in the bulletin, especially, just a few weeks ago we celebrated the rite of acceptance. And we do that at a Mass, and the parish is asked to stand with them and offer their commitment and their support to support them through their journey.
And our parish is extremely supportive of the RCIA process and very welcoming. When we have the rite of acceptance, which is just a beautiful celebration, there's so many people in the community that are just waiting to greet these new people and welcome them. And
we also include them in the process at the very beginning, because when we're ready for another session to begin, we ask the community, do you know of anyone that we should be contacting? And that person doesn't have to be identified. It's just, so sometimes they have somebody in their family or a friend that they want to introduce to this, but they feel more comfortable if we ask. So generally the director does make some phone calls at the beginning and say, somebody suggested your name, would you like to? So it's from the very beginning of the process.
I remember a few years back when I did the talk at the beginning of the year, and I asked the question, if you have ever been involved in RCIA in any capacity, please stand. And it was so amazing, because mostly everybody in the church stood. They'd been involved in RCIA in some capacity. And so then the question is, okay, if you didn't stand, come be a part of us.
One of the things that I had heard once is that you don't teach people into the church, even though having knowledge is important. You love them into the church. And one of the greatest signs when we would do interviews toward the end, if they say, I just feel at home when I'm in church, that is like, yes, that's so, and that really is not just the team that makes them feel that way. It is the entire community, yeah.
And then there is the cookie ministry.
Every time, I call every week for cookies and refreshments, and I very hardly ever get to say, oh no, I can't do that, or can put me on the next week, but don't forget about me. I want to do that. And I always ask them to pray for our candidates, for our team, and and they feel they just like that. They love that. Just sharing our faith, I think, is a tremendous strength. our parish grows. We have growth. We're not stagnant.
And I would say our diversity again. You know, we have a huge, or not a huge team, but we have a large team, and it seems like there's somebody that can connect with you know, another, maybe a candidate or.
I can be giving the talk on marriage, and I know I'm perfectly comfortable if anybody would intercede and say something, you know, in addition to that.
We break into small groups and we have about 20-25 minutes of personal sharing and discussing questions, and I think that's where the magic happens too.
And we used to be able to have a break time for refreshments, but anymore we just, right as they come in, grab that coffee, get some water, have the fruit, have the cookies, relax, you know, just be with us.
We all know that the current title for this program is OCIA, the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults. But we've shared, we've done this for decades, and we've referred to it as the RCIA, and I think many people, Catholics, that's what they know. So if you hear OCIA, that's the RCIA, and the bishops have decided that it's more appropriate that it be named an order rather than a rite of Christian initiation of adults.